Hello, and welcome to Just Another Real Estate Podcast, where we'll speak with Arizona's most successful real estate professionals to better understand their business, current market conditions, team and business building strategies, successes, and challenges. This podcast is brought to you by Dwell Inspect Arizona with your host, Sean Garvey.
Welcome to Just Another Real Estate Podcast. Today's wonderful guests are Evan and Jentri Young. This is the first time we have had multiple people that we're interviewing. So I'm super excited to hear two stories. It's double your bang for your buck on this one. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today, taking the time to have a great conversation.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us, Sean.
We
course.
appreciate you thinking of us.
When I started to develop this, I certainly thought of you two being on here. I knew you'd be great guests, have great personalities, have a great story to share. So tell me about yourselves. Tell me what got you into the business. What is your business name? How did you develop? How are you to where you're at today?
Do you want to start?
You go ahead.
Okay. Our team name is very creative. It's Evan and Jentri.
Okay.
We went on a real limb out there. I've been licensed in Arizona since 2012. You have been for 6 years, 5 years.
When we came back from Belize.
Yeah, when we moved back from Belize. So we've had kind of a hiatus. We were here, moved to Belize for a couple of years. Our daughter was born there. And then we've been back for, I think it's 7 years this month, actually, that we've been back. So
Right.
That's probably about how long.
Right. And Belize is really where we started real estate. So we lived on the island of Ambergris Caye in Belize, and specifically targeted international investors. A lot of US and Canadian investors. A lot of people actually look to move their money out of the US. And so we'd have a lot of real estate going on that way. And when we came back, then I got licensed here because you didn't have to be licensed in Belize to do real estate, believe it or not.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Which
Wow.
is kind of funny, kind of spooky when you think that through a little bit. So he got licensed. We started our team and have been working together since then, really, in residential.
That's an interesting dynamic, right? The husband and wife dynamic. And we'll get into that a little bit. I just have one quick question because I didn't know until I met you guys. Where's Belize and what is it?
It is south of the Yucatan Peninsula, kind of tucked under the Yucatan Peninsula,
Which
along
is Mexico.
Mexico, yeah.
Got
Just
it.
below Mexico.
Just below Mexico. Actually, the island we lived on, Ambergris Caye, used to be a part of Mexico. It actually, there's a canal that was channeled out by the Mayans that they used to travel back behind the lagoon and be out of the way of waves because the island has a reef that protects the island. You've got the second largest barrier reef in the world right off from Ambergris Caye. So they made this channel anyway to go behind, and that's what actually created Ambergris Caye as an island, and it ended up being separated from the land of Mexico. But otherwise it would be like a little finger peninsula coming off if that canal wasn't there.
Wow. Wild.
Super
And correct
cool.
me if I'm wrong, based on that reef, I'm pretty sure that I saw it on like Discovery Channel Shark Week, that there's like an area where there's just a whole ton of sharks there.
Yes, that's that Shark Ray Alley that you go to.
Yeah.
One of the snorkeling spots.
One of the snorkeling spots, and you get out and you
Wait, what?
you swim with the sharks. Our daughter, she was born there. She was swimming with sharks at like a month old.
Well, we were on the catamaran with her when she was 3 weeks old, but actually like snorkeling with us, I think was like 9 or 10 months. She was in her little floaty thing, with like the umbrella thing, and just floating around with us, and nurse sharks and stingrays were coming up and just hanging in the water.
How wonderful.
Yep.
The perks of island life.
Yes. There were some perks.
There are perks.
Yeah.
There's also downsides. I mean, but it was great. We were on the #1 team in the world at REMAX internationally at that time.
Holy cow.
So that's where we got our feet wet and came back to do it here.
Feet wet, and I think it broadened our perspective, not just life and living on an island, which is very different than living in Arizona, in Phoenix,
Sure.
but broadened our perspectives with business and investing, I think also.
Yeah.
A lot that we just had never been exposed to before.
So you go down there and you're like, hey, I need a job. And you're like, knock on the Remax dude's got office,
So,
and you're
Not
like,
really.
like, you
Well,
don't need a
we-
license. So like,
Yeah,
let's go for it.
exactly.
You don't, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that we probably can't talk about on
Yeah.
a podcast.
So initially we got married there, and Evan said, we're going to live here someday. And I thought, of course, that's, forever in the future. And yeah, right. And then we moved here. We're not happy with.
I was, so my transition, I was a global account manager for a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
And I traveled essentially every week I'd leave on Sunday night or Monday morning and get back Thursday or Friday that week. And
it was awful.
I traveled, like, some days I'd be in multiple states on the same day. And I'd wake up in a hotel room, literally wondering, I didn't know where I was. Like, I'd wake up in the morning, like, have to sit and think, what city am I in? Which was crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember we took some time off, and we went up to my favorite place to go, like, camping and fishing, is in Wyoming, called Snowy Range. And we had at the time a boxer named Elway. And we were up there, and she didn't respond to me calling for her. And
she was only coming to me.
Yeah, she was only coming to her. And she used to respond to me. And so that was kind of like we didn't have kids then. So that was my first, like, realization, like, holy cow, I'm gone so much that my dog doesn't listen to me anymore.
Yeah.
And so I gave my notice, and
we went to Belize for our anniversary. And that's kind of where the connection came in of, would you guys like live down here and work down here? And so we came back, and we're like, we're gonna do it.
So
yeah,
I
cool.
gave my notice, and like 30 days later we moved.
From the time we gave our notice to the time we were on the island was 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Boom.
Decided, and we found out 10 days after we moved that I was
pregnant. Wow. Something like a couple of life shifts in 2 months, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pregnant for the first time, living on an island in a third world country in the middle of the Caribbean.
With no jobs.
Yeah. Well, we had a job, but
you already got it.
It was slow to get started. Kinda.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got into real estate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So sort of a job.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Then you just show up, third world country, then you're finding the number one team. Is that the connection? Like, when you were down there, you made that connection with him or her? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, essentially. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but actually meeting the parents of that person, we were, I guess, to even go further back, did you say we were married down there? Okay, never mind. She already said that we were married down there, and we're going to live there one day. So yeah, it was a connection thing that kind of randomly fell, and things started rolling into place that way. And then,
so you don't have to have a license down there to do real estate, but you're supposed to have a work permit if you're not a Belizean. And so we had to work kind of through that process, and then got to meet a lot of different types of individuals, some very high net worth individuals.
So yeah, I mean,
it was interesting.
There's a lot of people, mainly investors are looking at it. And so you target investors internationally, but we'd meet, I mean, we met families too, but we met, like Robert Kiyosaki,
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Who else?
Ken McElroy,
Peter Schiff, him on MSN all the time.
He's talking a lot right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of people that look at stuff internationally. I mean, we had people from a doctor that did all the surgeries for an NFL team and a baseball team out. I won't say names and stuff.
Texas,
but,
right?
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say no.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of all sorts of people that we met from all over the world that are looking for investments in the US, but also outside of it, just to expand their portfolios and keep up with things are ever changing here with our dollar, and there's things happening around the world that people follow more so than we realize, being in the US, how much goes on outside of it too.
For sure. That makes sense. And so with your move down there, that was your decision. If you both get into real estate, you're almost in business, starting your business together down there.
Yeah, we did operate very separately down there.
Oh, you did?
I mean, we were at the same place, but
the projects
we worked on very separate projects. So like here, we always work on single family homes. Down there, she mainly did land when I did the resorts, and then like condos, anywhere that you can have an ROI essentially. So like there was a resort that we were in with developing, and then there was also other resorts that existed that people would basically come down. They'd fly down on like a Friday, meet for dinner, and then the next day we'd go out and tour properties on the island. We'd look at their ROI, look at like what the room occupancy was, how much they charge per night, what the resort's fees were, because you're buying like a condo in a resort, but then it's being occupied by a management company or whoever's running that resort property, and so you're just going through those properties and showing what the ROI is, what they can get for their money, what the occupancy rate is, what your projection would be for the year, and you look at the times of year as far as high season versus low season, what the rates are, and all that.
So that's an interesting element of that business. When I was in Hawaii, I inspected some, they call them condo tels there. And like my first introduction to them, like I had no clue what it was. And then I got the I guess the MLS sheet, and it was like you were buying a hotel room for $100,000.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you can only inspect this from 12 to 1. And I was like, what is going on here? And we went to the front desk, got a key. I went up there, and there were like sheets were balled up on the bed. And I was like, what do you guys want me to do for the inspection? They're like, test the air. There's like a microwave and like a little baby fridge and a bathroom and a shower. And I was like, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And we would do a lot of those. And you were right. A lot of Japanese investors would do that. And then they put it into the hotel pool.
Yeah. I mean, essentially you could think of it as the same thing as somebody buying an Airbnb property down in Scottsdale here. That's what they're looking at outside of the US. But you had global investors there. I mean, there's a lot of Chinese investors, Canadian, of course. You had Europeans coming over.
Interesting.
It was a global thing.
So then you guys decided to close that chapter as you shift through there, and then move back to Arizona, and then open your real estate business together. You're taking your differentiation between what you knew in there, putting it together, harnessing your forces, and hitting into the market.
Yes. So we left there. Our daughter Dylan was born there. She's 8 now. And we were there. She was there for almost 2 years. And I think it was a big part of it was family. It's easier when it's just the two of us down there, and we find out she's pregnant 10 days after we get there. And I mean, there's obviously the complications of you can't get everything that you're used to in the US down there. And so you're far away from family, you're far away from your normal
creature comforts.
And so you add in a baby to that, and clothes, diapers, that kind of stuff is more difficult to come by, especially when you're on an island. But it's a third world country. I mean, at that time, there was 0 chains, like no McDonald's, no nothing, no hotel brands. There is now hotel brands, but I mean, you just don't have those. Like the only chains that you had at that time were real estate chains, like Remax, where we were at.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So there was no 11 o'clock Target run to pick up formula and
no mommy and me group. No, nothing like that.
Our like grocery shopping, you went every few days to go grocery shopping, because food down there. You have no GMOs. You have everything that you get there is super, super fresh, but it goes bad very quickly because you just don't have all that treatment that you have on the foods here. It's not all processed. And so you don't have cars on the island we lived on either. So we'd have a golf cart. And when we go grocery shopping, it was a half day thing because you had multiple stops. You go to Maria's fruit stand and the butcher, which is like, you know, an old school butcher that you'd probably see in the US that are coming back now in the US.
Yeah.
Where you go to your butcher and have everything. But hey, you go in there's a counter full of beef and pork and chicken. And oftentimes there's one where you walk in and there was a counter and the pigs are hanging 10 feet behind it too.
Yeah.
Like
Wild.
everything's right there.
Sounds cool.
Our shopping days it was a whole thing
it was
too.
A thing.
You know, it took a little bit, but it's fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So came back and decided that real estate is what we were going to do. And Ev got licensed. And then when we moved back here, we really didn't have anyone. Evan's sister and brother-in-law lived here, but we didn't have like a sphere of influence, and we didn't grow up here. So we didn't have, you know, those kind of deep roots to start with. So it was a lot of open houses, anything we could do to try and build our business that way.
Connect with people, offering value of basically our background. Essentially, our background is what got us into offering value with people at open houses and stuff. My background is construction and construction management. My degree's in construction management. I graduated from Colorado State University, which at that time, I think it was in the top 3 programs in the country with like Purdue and Texas and A&M, I think. And I don't remember what it was at that time exactly, but I think it's still pretty high ranked up there. And then Jentri has a business degree, but has all sorts of experience with home builders and design, flooring, interior design and stuff. So we were able to offer a different, like more in-depth perspective, I think, than a lot of people have just with construction knowledge. And then obviously she has construction knowledge too. So that's a benefit. And we still get calls today where people look at our website and they're like, oh, we want somebody that understands construction, walks into that and looks for specific things, whether they had a bad experience in the past that caused them to want that specifically, or we have some people from North Carolina that we're under contract with right now out here that are moving here. And they specifically said they had a realtor one time, I think in Oregon, that had construction experience, and they really liked that knowledge. That was an additional benefit to them when they were looking at homes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so when you came together to start a business, the marriage dynamic is hard, and the business dynamic is hard. Even with, and then you add in a partner with the business dynamic, it gets harder. Did you have the foresight to like have defined roles? Because I've seen you guys define your roles as your business has grown, and we can talk about kind of what they are later. But like, did that start, or was that kind of forced as you kind of developed your business?
You can say I feel like it just kind of developed, honestly.
I don't think we had foresight for it, or we probably wouldn't have done it. I'm kidding, kind of. No, I wish we would have thought that through a little bit more. Some friends of ours, they're American, but we actually met them in Belize.
Yeah.
They have traveled around, and they're actually in Hawaii right now. But for a while, they traveled around, and I remember talking to my friend Tam one day and saying, like, how are you guys? They were literally living in like a Ford Expedition, traveling around the Western United States for like a year and a half. And I'm like, how have you not just, murdered each other? You're this big. And that's one thing she talked about. Todd has this set of responsibilities that he does. This is my set. And we know when we get to a campground or whatever, Todd's going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that. And I remember thinking, that's genius. We can do that in our business. And so I think some of it has it's more come about a little bit more organically than us being very intentional and foresight and realizing that. But now it's more to where I'll do a lot of like the initial calls and conversations, like with, if we get a referral or a new client lead or whatever, I'll take on those more. Evan is phenomenal during the inspection period.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be at our inspection wrap-ups a lot because he's very good at, this is a big thing. You should be very concerned about it. And here's why. Or the inspector might make it seem like a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's really not. Just wading through that piece of it. He's got a very, very good perspective with that. Or if clients are talking about remodels or upgrades or different things, then again, he's good at identifying steps or things maybe that they're not thinking about. So I do think now we're better at piecing it out a little bit, but it's also hard. There are a certain number of steps in each transaction, but it's hard to just kind of put that on a conveyor belt and truly piece it out, because a lot of it is like this, and it kind of runs into the other part of it. So we still have to keep each other updated and current to what's going on.
And everybody's different.
Yeah.
Every single client's different. Every house is different. I mean, you could be looking at newer builds or historical homes, and there's all sorts of things that come into play with personalities and what additionally we can offer to people, or what we feel like they need assistance with more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of organic that way. There's definitely like set processes that we put in place, but then there's different people that need additional things.
Yeah.
And how do you take that? Like, do you have a Tuesday morning meeting and where you sit down and just review what's going on? Like, how do you compartmentalize business and life so that it doesn't overtake the dinner table talk?
And that's what's hard. And we have 2 kids, and Dylan's in school. They're getting more into the school age, but when they were younger, for sure, it was hard because it's the constant interruption. Mom, I need water. And, so there are times where it was really hard when we would finally say, we have to just talk today for like 15 minutes. We have to.
And we did. It was a couple years ago when I think we realized that we were sitting there and said to, I think you might have said it. And you
had an epiphany.
You said, we need to have that like separation of time where it doesn't overtake dinner table, because a lot of times our only free time, because we're running around with clients or doing stuff, and to sit down and talk a lot of times is at that dinner table. And that's where we can catch up, just because oftentimes we can't, like between kids and clients and running around with jujitsu and stuff like that. Oftentimes that's when we can discuss it. But we did stop like 2 years ago, and I think you pointed out, just like we have to have that separation, like cutoff time, where we don't discuss it, because it does interfere a lot.
It interfered with us, and even our kids are like, why are you always talking about work at dinner? And they don't want to hear about whoever's inspection report and low appraisal and so that I think definitely helped to try and separate it.
That helps. And oftentimes we do have to just talk about it then, because there was no other time during the day to do it.
You got to get out. Yeah. I mean, we have a family business too. It's not perfect. But you try and look for focused areas of opportunities where you can separate that and, kids, how was your day? That type of thing. Because that's important.
Totally.
Still try and give them what they need.
So you didn't have a sphere of influence. You went out and got your sphere of influence by open houses primarily.
Pretty much
in the first year. What does the first year look like for a new agent and a new team and a new group and everything?
Yeah, it was hard. I think our first closing took us 6 months from the time we got back from Belize to our first closing was 6 months. So that was hard financially, obviously. To come back, not have everything. I had multiple job offers that we sat there and contended me taking, and it was this ultimate goal of us being in real estate together that I said, all right, never mind. Because I mean, they weren't bad jobs. They were lucrative jobs.
Right.
But we left US because of all those issues of me not being able to be around, and we wanted to have we obviously had a daughter then and wanted to have that time with our kids. And so it was like, all right, we need to make this work. So I think it was about 6 months. I remember interviewing for the job. Well, no, like interviewing for, so it was a buyer that I had met at an open house. And I remember going over to their home and interviewing for it. They had interviewed 2 other agents, and sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't.
It happens more with sellers than buyers.
Yeah, but this was buyer interviewing. And they ended up, and I knew the people I was going against were big names, seasoned agents here, well known. And they ended up selecting me, and that's how we got our first closing, and that fed us for a while we could keep doing open houses and grow that sphere.
Because I think our next one after that was 3 or 4 more months.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like a waterfall after that one.
Yeah.
So first year was definitely hard. And it's a very interesting business in that it's not hard to get a real estate license, to be completely honest. It's not that much education time. It's a couple of tests. It's not that hard, to the detriment of the industry. I think I feel like the standard should be a little bit higher, because it's legal, it's financial, it's so psychological and emotional. And so on top of just moving back and trying to create some kind of a sphere and meet people, we're also learning contracts and negotiations and all of that. So I mean, the first year is hard for sure. It's very hard. I think a lot of industries to get going is hard.
And we didn't have that frenzy going on that we had for the previous 2 years, where you could, a lot of people buying. I mean, it was probably more normal like this. And so it took a while. People were looking at more homes, and it wasn't to rush.
Yeah.
I got to ask you though, you went into that meeting, you hadn't had a sale in 6 months or leading up to that. You got to be a little nervous, and you're coming in against, 2 seasoned agents, and you're the new guy in town. But you got the deal. That's super exciting. Or you got the listing. What do you think the magic was?
It was actually just it was a buyer to get get the opportunity to represent the buyer. I'm super competitive. So honestly, it's not a nervousness. Like getting on this with you, I'm not nervous. But there's this part of me that takes over as far as competition wise. And it started when I was young, like meeting girlfriends' parents. It was always my goal for girlfriends' parents to love me when I walked out there. Like I'm gonna impress them.
And at open houses, you were like that too, because
the open houses,
a lot of people come into open houses and are like, because they know that they're gonna get harassed, and the whole time that they're walking through. And in every open house, it was his goal to make a relationship with. It was people.
My goal to make them laugh or smile while they're. Just that goal to make, because it is a lot of people have their defenses up. They don't feel comfortable with it, and I'm not there to attack them. Like, we're there to assist and help where we can. If there's an opportunity to create a relationship with that, I love doing it. And so I'll be like, watch this, and I'll go and whatever I have to say. It just depends on the person. But I love to build relationships like that. I think it's fun. It's like a competition in myself to have them laugh or smile and make that defense, that guard go down. So same thing at that first meeting. Yeah, I was nervous. I'm thinking, man, we need this. But at the same time, I'm like, gonna do great. I love competition, and if I can get them to smile, enjoy me being there, and show my value, as far as like construction knowledge and things like that, then we'll get it. And we did. So I love that part.
That's awesome. And have you applied that aspect to client retention as well? I mean, it sounds like you develop a friend like that. or both of you?
Yeah,
do?
I would say our business now, our business does very well. I would say, for being back here for 7 years this year or this summer. We do, the majority of our business is from referral and return now.
Yeah.
And we don't like, we don't do Zillow, pay for Zillow leads or anything like that. The majority of stuff that we have is people either seeing reviews of us online or being a repeater.
Okay. How do you get visibility online? How are people seeing you? Do you work on that, or was that kind of a set it and forget it?
No, I did spend a lot of time on that at first. That's something that I did in Belize, as far as becoming number one. You can't be number one in the US because the companies, like, if you were to Google something on your Google AdWords, and the top guys, it's always Zillow, Redfin, whatever. They spend millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. You can't compete. But down in Belize, where those guys don't exist, I was able to become number one if you searched for a realtor on Ambergris Caye. Wow. That was all through SEO. I actually trained myself. I didn't go to a school or anything, but I got a few books, looked online, and trained myself on SEO at that time, where we then became the top listing whenever you searched on Google for us, or for real estate down there. So yes, when we came back, I did do all that same stuff to kind of build us up. And over time, that's changed too, because even then, so 9 years ago, 10 years ago in Belize, and then coming back here and being 7 years, in these last 7 years, SEO has changed a lot too. Sure. And there's more and more competition wise, and I can't compete on that. So we no longer show up so high that way. But I mean, it's all about getting our reviews. We still request people to after we're finished to review us on Zillow. We stopped that for a while, just because there was word of it going to be, all of our reviews were being deleted, or lots of our sales wouldn't show up for a while, things like that. So it was reviews on Zillow, reviews on Google, reviews on Facebook, things like that. We don't ever share them, but I think, a lot of our calls now are people that see those reviews about us, however they find them. There's so many different words that people search by for real estate agents, and we land whether it's something that I did in the past or not, organic, whatever, they're landing on us somehow. And we're showing up and they read reviews of us. And I would say, we know when they do, because they'll be like, oh, we read reviews you got with this, like the people I mentioned about that were coming from North Carolina. They found us online and read the reviews and saw our website, where they read about construction background, things like that. And they were like,
and I appealed to them
specifically with a construction background.
I mean, I got to go back and just highlight that point, because I think that's pretty incredible that you got a couple of books to learn SEO and it took you to the top. Because there's this mystification that SEO is complicated. Obviously it is. But people, the typical answer is to just go pay somebody, $50 or $75 or $500 a month, whatever the number is. And in the real estate industry, it's probably thousands of dollars a month to show up at the top, millions of dollars a month.
Yeah.
And so those 3 books have just paid dividends for your knowledge year after year after year. That's pretty incredible.
They did. I taught myself how to code and do SEO while we were down there, just by reading books and looking at, like, watching tutorials online and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's so cool.
A lot of people look at this pretty face. They don't realize that there's what's going on up here.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. And then part of your marketing, and I've seen it change over the years, but Jentri used to spend hours and hours and hours, and you used to have a really curated and really detailed and really incredible social media page and posts, and that's kind of changed as of recently. I want to know kind of what you did, and then why it shifted.
I did. So I enjoyed it. I felt like it is very much a process what we do, but like Evan touched on, each transaction is very different because the people involved are different. It's different buyers and sellers and whatnot. So I felt like then it would be fun to treat my social media more like kind of a case study, like in this situation, here's what this looked like, and to describe, going out and seeing 6 or 8 different homes, and this is some of the good that we saw, and this is some of the bad, or what worked for our client and what didn't, and then follow that up with, oh, we went under contract, and then follow up with, here's what the inspection report looked like, and the appraisal came back fine, or oh my God, the appraisal was not
Exploded,
good.
yeah.
Because there's all kinds of stuff that can come up through these processes. So I definitely went through a phase where I was more active on social media. And then just in the last couple of years when our world got so wonky, I feel like it was kind of a gross space for a while, and I just didn't enjoy it as much. And it takes some time to make all of the slides on Instagram stories and write those details and stuff. And part of me just thought, it doesn't feel good. I would rather put that time with sitting there with my kids and not creating the slides, but just being present with them or whatever. So I did take some time off. I think for over a year, I didn't post anything, stories or any kind of post at all.
I mean, everybody's seen it. A lot of negativity in that space, and whether you're blue, red, like blue, red, whatever your feelings were on COVID, all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of attack on whatever you did. There was judgment on that, and so I think that was a lot of us just saying, you know what,
it doesn't feel good right now
in all that, because we don't care. I don't care what party you are over here. We honestly don't care. And everybody, there's a lot of attachment to that, that people have and have strong opinions on that, where we're not necessarily concerned about that as much. And that might be we came back from Belize with a different global view that we didn't have when we lived in the US. It took us almost a year to open our minds to that more global view, our opinions on things. And so I think that was part of it too, is just like, we have this bubble here in the US. And like, I'll try to tell people different things, and they're like, yeah, we know, we've been to Mexico. I'm like, you went to Mexico for vacation.
You went to Cancun.
You went to Cancun. You don't really know. And like I say, it took us a year to actually start understanding and feeling some of those things and having that more broad view that it's really hard to describe, but not until you live out of the country and escape that bubble can you have that more open view of things.
And I think living somewhere versus just visiting and you're on vacay, and it's very different to actually live somewhere. You probably can relate to that, living in Hawaii. It's part of the US, but it's obviously very different than anything in the continental US. For sure. And so you probably can relate to that quite a bit also.
And so I think that opened our mind to, hey, we don't want to be on social media and getting arguments about this and that, because we honestly don't care. I mean, this was the coolest thing that I take away from Belize, and will tell people. You are in a third world country where we have $1 million house right here next to a literal shack. It is a shack made out of wood found on the beach, like that sticks, you're living right there. So the cool thing about Ambergris Caye is, so like if you go to the majority of islands that you were to go visit, you got a giant resort. And it's a resort community. So it's all giant resorts all around it. On the other side of the island is where the locals live. And so when you go visit, you don't see that. And in Belize on Ambergris Caye, you see it. Everybody's still together. And so I'll tell people this is the way I look at it. You can sit at a bar and you can sit by somebody that makes $10 million a year, and you can sit by somebody that makes $5 a week, and you are the same. It doesn't matter there. That status doesn't exist. yes, it's discussed like outside of it, but when you're sitting there next to somebody, when somebody says, and I think this is super cool, when somebody says, what do you do? It's not what your job is. It's who you are as a person.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
you sit by them and they want to know about you. They're not asking what, because
like what your job is.
Here you sit with somebody and probably the first 3 questions they ask you is what you do for a living. That's not something that's important as you're sitting next to somebody at the bar down there. So status and like your job is not important. Your family, like things that you do for fun, that's what's important. And I love that about that there. And so I think that's also an extension of that. What we were just talking about with social media is we don't want to get involved in it. We don't care because we don't want to have that argument. There's so much more going on that's way more important than we need to fight about if you're red or blue, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you would get, with these postings, you'd get this backlash. I mean, I always thought it was really cool because it was kind of a behind, like a raw, behind the scenes, like day in the life of a realtor. And I, you know, we probably follow 2,500 to, I don't know, maybe it's even 4,000 realtors on our Instagram, and a lot of the stuff's the same, but that was different and more detailed and like organic and raw and
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think it was backlash on those. It was other stuff. Like, I mean, we lost friends, we lost business, and it was never like, hey, Jentri, what, you liked this post, why? It was never like that. It just was like very broad assumption. And so just in general, social media for a while felt very gross to me. And I thought, I'm not going to put my time into trying to do something different and try and have this education piece of it and kind of show the good, and not just the HGTV, where you like go drink a glass of wine and then it closes, and you know, because it is not that at all. So I just thought, I'm not going to put my time into this when it doesn't feel good to be on there. And now I've done a few little posts, but I am kind of missing that a little bit, because I think it's fun to make it fun and try and make it a little bit more educated or educational and a little more behind the scenes to it.
Well, and to be fair, in the last 2 years, the business was different. Like when you started, you were showing the three, 4 houses that you saw in a day. Yeah. And instead you would have been like in line with 55 people looking at this, be like, look how fun this is.
Yeah.
It
was very different for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very different. I know it's kind of funny to talk about. We used to literally like send out, okay, you've got to narrow this down to like 8 or 10. And for a while it was like, there's nothing. Like there's literally, you call, and instead of saying, you know, what does the seller need? It was how many offers, how much over are they? Did they waive everything? It was crazy for a while. And so with this shift that I think we're still in, part of it feels good to be a little bit more back to normal of, you know, 30 days on market is okay instead of 3 hours, you know, having some time to actually show the house instead of running through it with 15 other people. So part of that's okay. There's some uneasiness, I think, still just with interest rates doing whatever the hell they're doing and some different things.
I think they're going up right now.
Yeah.
They've been going up. Yesterday it went down a little bit. Yesterday a little bit down.
Yeah.
So how are you succeeding in metering clients' expectations through that shift? It's got to be challenging from I mean, it's happened in 4 months. 5 months.
I mean, it's super hard because you have a lot of action and a lot of noise. People have a lot of noise from their TV coming at them, what they see online, what a realtor tells them, what a
friend, a family member.
I mean, there's all sorts of noise going at people. People are catching up now and seeing that things are different. But when it first started shifting, you definitely had like the groanings of the sellers, like, what's going on? Why is this? My neighbor just sold 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and they got $50,000 over. And why has my house been on for 7 days? So you definitely had that where it's all about being able to educate them and walk through what's going on. And I think a lot of it now, it would have been harder for us when we started, to be honest, because now we've got a lot of action in Business Weekly, in that we're getting to experience it with our listings. And then also when we take buyers out and see what's going on, what kind of activity is going on, we get to see it as a boots on the ground. Like, we feel it ahead of any statistics that come out. We're feeling it. And so we're able to share that what we're seeing in person. We can share data, but the data even is behind what we see first too. So, I mean, that definitely helps that we're very busy out there right now and be able to share that.
Good.
I mean, it's not always like what somebody wants to hear, but that's one thing that you'll find from us, is that we'll always be honest in what we share, whether that gives them a bad feeling about us or a good feeling. You're always going to find that we're honest. And I mean, there's definitely those people that they didn't want to see the email of, well, this weekend we didn't have anything, and unfortunately we went up to 6.5% this week. They don't want to hear those things. And some people just get upset, or they have, like I said, that noise that's coming in of the TV, their friend or whatever. But it's dated. A lot of it's dated information.
Yeah, for sure.
We're looking at. And so they want to listen to that. Just because you as a real estate agent in this business, you generally are not trusted in the first place. We're a lot of times looked very honestly poorly upon, like considered like used car salesmen. Sorry to used car salesmen, but that's definitely a look that or an idea that's kind of put on us oftentimes. And so you have a little bit of hesitancy from people when you give them information, and they choose, whether to listen to you or from the noise or from their friend. I mean, we're always honest about it. And like I said, that can be a good or a bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's the truth, and that's all you can ask for, especially when you're going through these transactions.
Absolutely.
To be a guiding light that's going to tell them when it's good or bad, or I don't have the answer. I don't know. Yeah.
We've always tried to approach it more of being like a trusted advisor. And like Evan said, we'll always be honest. We'll try to, like, how we say it and how we present it matters, but also be very honest and forthcoming about it, to where we are looked at more in that trusted advisor role. And I feels like we've done well with that because of the repeat clients and referrals. But that's always something that we try and keep in mind.
And honestly, that actually does cost us business at the time, some of this stuff, but eventually we're going to get more from
hopefully it builds more trust.
It builds more trust. But like, you did this inspection for us in McCormick Ranch.
The kitchen sink drained on the outside wall.
And it was a flip in McCormick Ranch. The kitchen sink drained outside through the wall. And then they had a chimney that they turned into a pantry. And they didn't close off the top of the roof up there. And they had a piece of drywall. And we had told
out a wall. And we were like, we're pretty sure that wall was probably load bearing, and there's no anywhere.
And so when we showed that house, we actually had told those clients, we were both with them at that time. And I said, this house it's not done well. This flip is not done well. And that's where I say the honesty. I'm going to tell you, we don't just want that sale. Because we're not going to have, if we just push you into a sale and you're unhappy, we're not going to get your, maybe you'll give us a good review right after it closes, but after you've been there a while, you're going to delete that review and probably post something else. So we're not going to exist after we do that, because like a lot of people, their thing is like, oh, you just want to get a commission. You just want to get it closed and get a commission. Like, no, because you're going to write something poor about us later, or delete that good review or whatever. And so we did say on that one, this house is like before you even came, you probably shouldn't even offer on this, but they loved that home and that location. So we did go under contract. You inspected it, and all those things came back. It was junk, and they did cancel on it. And it's funny because the husband on that one told the wife, he's like, these people, these realtors are crazy. They work for commission and they told us not to buy that house.
Yeah.
And he's like, they don't get paid if we don't buy the house. And so like that was like earth shattering to them. So there's that conceived notion of realtors just pushing you into that house is definitely very real, because we experienced it with them. And then it broke that barrier right there with that house, that they were like, holy crap, they don't care. They want us to get a good house, not just buy whatever so they get a commission.
Well, we told them at the time, I told them, I want to be invited to your wedding, to your baby shower. You know, if you guys sell this house or whatever it is, I hope that we're the first ones you call. And with this couple in particular, that's exactly the next year we got invited to their wedding. I went to her baby shower. We helped them purchase their next move up this past summer.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we do things the way we do. Is it's not just a transaction. We want to build relationships where we're part of, you know, a little bit of like, I don't know, their extended family or our real estate family or whatever you want to call it, but to where we're thought of and have future transactions hopefully as well.
And we'll do the same thing with a seller. We had a seller last year on an acre and a half of land that they had used us to purchase probably like 3 or 4 years before that. And we got the pictures done, got everything ready. We're about to go on the market. And this is
December.
when interest rates then started shooting up really high. And so we're looking at prices for what his family wanted. Prices keep going up versus what he had and what he could get in exchange with what was going on with the rates. And so I think we were supposed to activate the next day. And we went over, sat down at the table with them and said, listen, this is for your budget, what you can now get versus what you currently have. And so, and with the rates. And so we start looking at that monthly payment. They wanted more acreage, but similar home. But unfortunately, homes had gone up so much in price and land that they were knocked out of that level. So they were going to list and buy with us. And so based on those numbers, it's like $50,000 in commission. But we had already paid for pictures, everything. And we're like,
you guys shouldn't do it.
Probably shouldn't do it. And I mean, it wasn't us saying, no, we won't do it
for you,
but explain what options they have out there. We know deeply what they want. We sat and we spent a lot of time understanding what people want. I think maybe that's that construction background and design background that we have of being able to understand and walk into homes and understand what people want very innately, so quickly. But we knew had a deep understanding of what they wanted, what we could find on market and off market properties, and what that price was versus what they currently have. And it wasn't what was going on with the market didn't allow them to upgrade. And so essentially they would have been selling their house and buying the same thing for maybe buying the same thing for $400,000 more than what they were paying right now.
Crazy.
And so we ended up just canceling and they're still there, not listing it. But like, that's total honesty, totally. And you know, we're not asking for reimbursement of the photos or anything. It's just like, they'll refer us, they'll use us in the future. Whatever happens, we've got a great relationship with that person because we care about them. We've made that relationship from the get-go when they bought. And now, you know, we do pop buys. We talk to them, see them regularly out. And that's how it is with a lot of our clients, is just that continued care for them. And we do honestly care for them, especially after we make that relationship.
I mean, you just dropped some huge gold, especially for people getting into the business or new agents. And I just want to quickly summarize what I heard. It's okay if they don't buy the first house, right? There are other houses out there for people. And sometimes you have to go through that first disaster to really tune what they want.
Yes.
I hear a lot of integrity in what you were saying. You guys always do the best thing for the client at the same time. And then you develop a caring caring relationship
Mhm.
with your clients. And it sounds like even by saying no, sometimes you're saying yes to the future.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah. And I understand that that can be hard for new agents too, because you're sitting at that dinner table and you haven't had a check for 6 months and you
Or
need
dinner.
that, right? And so it's like, all right, are you going to that house that you need and they love, are you going to tell them it's a piece of junk? You
Yeah.
need to, because your business isn't going to evolve and prosper afterwards, because it's going to tank if you do push them into that one, because that wasn't an honest thing that you did, or it had no integrity, and they're going to remember that and they're not going to refer you. Like I said, a lot of our business is from our past referrals and repeat customers. They wouldn't be repeating if we did stuff like that.
That's true. 100%.
Mhm.
I want to be cognizant of your time as well, and just make a quick shift into a couple, we'll call it closing questions. But
Yeah.
tell me about, as an agent, what do you like about home inspections? And then conversely, what do you dislike about home inspections too?
We, especially in the first couple of years, and we were talking about this, I said to Evan, how did we meet Sean initially? Because we had a couple of different home inspectors when we first started. And I feel like for sure your industry, there's a huge difference between just kind of the okay and mediocre and a truly good, trustworthy home inspector. And I don't think you realize the value of that until you experience both. And unfortunately, we've experienced both as buyer agents and listing agents. So now, especially seeing what a truly great home inspection company is and looks like, we appreciate it even more. I think part of it is the way a home inspector shows up. Not that you have to be like, like Andrew has a beard and longer hair and, but he still looks like presentable, and you show up and look nice and not like got out of jail a couple of nights ago or something, from that to talking about how a home inspection has some limitations. You can't see everything. You're not going to find every little thing, unfortunately. It's a human in an imperfect process, right? Like there's just things that you can't foresee, and you can't find every single little thing. So the rapport and the presentation when you're face to face with someone, but also the reports. I mean, we've gotten some reports that it's like, oh my gosh, they might as well have handwritten this on a napkin. Like it's awful. So I think even the reports and the professionalism that way makes a huge difference. Yeah. Communication. There's been times where Evan's been on the phone with you or one of your inspectors later in the evening or on weekends. Our clients know that they can call and get follow-up questions answered. So all of that is hugely important. The worst thing is you get this home inspection report and then the home inspector just kind of like disappears, and that's spooky because sometimes or at the wrap up, I miss a piece of it and then we're trying to write up the Binzer and Evan's like, well, what did they say about this? And I don't know. I didn't listen to that part, I guess. Let's call
it. For me, all that other stuff is good, but for me, with the construction background, a lot of it is just knowledge and unfortunately, a lot of home inspectors that we had tried over the years, they don't have knowledge, so I understand that I know a lot because of my background, but I also expect them to know a lot. And if I know way too much and they're saying stuff in there, then I'm like, that's not right. That's not right. That's wrong.
That's not a good
like, that's not a good feeling. And that's happened. That's definitely happened. There's stuff that some of them have said, and I'm like, that's very wrong. And not with your company, but other experiences that we've had, there's definitely been that.
I believe it. Yeah, it's certainly an evolving industry. Our licensing is similar to yours, where it's challenging, but it's not incredibly challenging. But it also doesn't teach you anything past the technical and
Right.
the rapport and the business building and so on and so forth. Ours I think just takes a little bit longer, or probably a lot longer in reality.
I think so. And I still remember in real estate school, and I hate this, for test taking purposes. And then it's like, you'll never, ever use this ever again. That's
right.
awful.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that. It should be teaching how to sit down with the seller and do a listing presentation, because that's what's going to make a difference, or how to pick good people to have in your toolkit, like a good inspection company and all of these different pieces that go into it.
Yeah.
A lot of it then just turns into trial by fire, unfortunately. And that can be kind of spooky.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get your feet wet for sure. And you probably don't know what you're doing. I mean, and in the very, very beginning, you're like, okay, we got an inspection. I guess got to find an inspector, or help my clients find an inspector, or what have you. So you got to go to your resources.
Yep.
I see the bike behind you, and it's a perfect segue for me to say, what does Evan and Jentri do just outside of your real estate business?
Fun.
I talk too much.
Oh, shush. If we can be outside with our babies, having some kind of adventure, getting dirty, just being outside, we're happy. So camping, fishing, mountain biking is one of our very favorites. Our kids mountain bike.
And race.
Anything outside is awesome. We have a puppy, a 6-month-old lab that's an amazing little dingus. But she loves to run trails, and so she fits in perfect now. And so being outside, we love to go to Lake Powell. We love to travel. We were in Costa Rica a couple of years ago. Amazing. We love going up to Colorado still. We both grew up in Colorado, so we love going up there, camping, exploring here. Badger Springs is awesome. But I think being outside is probably one of our very favorite things.
Anything outside, pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate that you've added to my tool belt that question, and it has a different meaning now. So thank you.
Oh, what?
What do you do?
What do I? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's not always that. I think it's cool to be more well-rounded than your job. You're not all the person you are is not your necessarily your job, right?
Yeah.
You laugh about it, because when Evan gets asked that, a lot of times he'll be like, I'm retired. Because part of it is, if you tell someone you're in real estate, it's like at the open house, they kind of go, they kind of pick up and like, oh, are they going to try and sell me a house I don't want?
Me sell my house or buy something. So I tell people all the time, I'm a secret agent, because like a secret real estate agent, because if they ask, I'll tell them I'm retired.
Until you know them better.
That's hilarious.
Not very good job at building up the business by telling I'm retired, but
well, then let's segue into that and say, where do people find you? How does someone acquire your skill set and values and service and integrity?
Google Evan and Jentri.
Yeah.
We have a website.
Yeah, we have a website, Phoenix Valley RE, like realestate.com. So phoenixvalleyre.com.
Social media. We're on Instagram, and we have a business Facebook page also.
Yeah. So they can find us that way.
Awesome. Guys, this has been enlightening.
Nothing special with that.
No, I mean, those are the ways. This has certainly been enlightening. I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time. I learned a lot too. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Hey, did I win? Did I win you over?
Yeah.
You
smiled through it.
You haven't stopped smiling the entire time. I think that's your secret.
Hey, that's one other thing though that I do say. I say that a smile sets the tone for your life. And like, if you wake up smiling and you smile with people, it makes things different from you. So I always get that comment about smiling, but it feels good. And so a smile sets the tone for your life, because it does.
And that's the name of this podcast. That's quotable right there. That's like in 20 years when you're in the history books and it's Evan says a smile sets the tone for your life.
Hopefully in 20 years I'm on
You are retired on an island.
I'm retired and like disappeared in Costa Rica or Belize or
And
whatever
nobody can
again.
find you.
I love it.
Thank you for listening to Just Another Real Estate Podcast. For the latest episodes, please subscribe and be sure to follow Dwell Inspect Arizona on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. To contact Dwell Inspect Arizona, call us at 480-867-4599. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, email our team at office@dwellinspectaz.com.